Can you believe we started Interview Boss in 2021?
Not really. It's insane. That's a lot of episodes and a lot of hours of talking.
Oh my gosh, it is. And if you're scrolling through all of our episodes, you might scroll straight past something that you really, really needed.
Yes, we're always getting messages from people asking us to do an episode on something, and I'm like, we already have.
So we've put together playlists to help you find the episodes that are exactly what you need, suited to your situation.
They're all categorized. If you're applying for jobs, we have episodes about resumes, cover letters, job ads. If you've been offered your dream job, we have episodes on resigning, exit interviews, and how to impress at your new company.
And we even have a very special playlist that's very popular for if you have an interview coming up immediately and you need just our most recommended hard-hitting episodes between now and then.
For all our last-minute listeners. It's all there for you. You can browse by category and check out all the playlists at interviewboss.com.au/podcast.
To actually show off individuality rather than try and hide it.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Interview Boss. My name's Sarah, and I've teamed up with my sister to give you advice, inspiration, and support when you're looking for a new job. I'm an HR and recruitment professional. Emma is a radio journalist, and we're excited to give you all the tips, tricks, and behind-the-scenes knowledge to help you in your career. Into our Shoot Your Shot shout out this week. We'd like to give a shout out to Scout, who messaged us in from the US. She said she found the podcast recently and she's really been loving it. She's got a few big interviews lined up with large companies, and she wanted us to talk about sending thank you messages after an interview. So thank you so much for that request, Scout. Good luck in your interviews coming up, and we will definitely cover that topic in the coming weeks. So keep an ear out. If you liked one of our episodes, used a tip that we sent you, or you want to request an episode specifically on your situation or industry, slide into our DMs on Instagram and let us know. We love hearing the feedback, and this show is for you after all. And if you have an interview coming up that you would really like some one-on-one help with, check out my one-on-one sessions. You can find all about them at www.interviewboss.com.au/coaching. So this week we have a very special guest with us, Andrew Dewars, co-founder of what has been called the TikTok for resumes, which is Zapid Hire. And he's here to talk all through video CVs, what they're great for, and what Zapid Hire is doing in the industry at the moment. Welcome, Andrew. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks,
So tell us a little bit about
Excited to be
Zapid Hire. You guys have a pretty cool story of how you actually got started. So tell us the origin story.
When I was growing up, I was really passionate about science. So one of the people I really enjoyed looking at was a guy called Richard Feynman. He wrote a really good book, Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman, Nobel Prize-winning physicist, and always loved kind of the different chemistry, physics, and whatnot. So started to go down the path of looking at medicine, but decided to try my hand at entrepreneurship beforehand. But the way they teach medicine is through apprenticeship. So there's this idea of seeing, doing, and teaching in medicine, also known as Sudoku. So I actually apprenticed under a guy called Dr. Sam Prince, who started Zambrero, and apprenticed under him and Steve Chapman in Shine. And yeah, that's kind of the start of the journey into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, right. Okay,
Zapid,
great.
I
And
guess.
so what was the problems that you saw, or kind of the downsides of the traditional recruitment process that you were trying to address?
We have this expression, or Sam came up with the expression, that it's always good to eat your own burrito or solve your own problems. So there's, 200 Zambro restaurants that we kind of got to see a really good viewpoint of. And the fundamental insight was, if you're going to hire a developer, you would look at the code they write, or GitHub. If you're going to hire a designer, you would look at their portfolio on Behance or whatnot. But if you're going to hire someone on the front line, you want to look at their personality and soft skills. And the traditional platforms wasn't really doing a really good job of that. So we thought that we could really speed up the process and reduce the time to hire through creating a much better user experience for candidates.
Yeah, right. And so the concept
employers.
is a short video, right? Tell us about how that kind of works.
So the candidate will get the app
Mm.
or go through the web version, and then it's kind of like a TikTok feed where you actually get to see videos from different
Ah,
venues. So you can see the culture, because what people forget is, the example I give
mm,
with Sam's restaurants, you have Indu, Mexico, right? And if people know, the Mexico
mm.
is, fun Mexican kind of vibe, shaking tequila and all that sort of stuff. Whereas Indu's a little bit more white collar shirt, and they're very different
Yeah.
cultures. So if you can see the video, you get a
Yep.
sense of where you actually want to work. So that's the first thing. And then a candidate will create some short videos showing off
Hmm.
their kind of personalities and soft skills, and then they can apply to jobs with
Yeah,
one
right. And
click.
then on
So it's
the
really easy.
employer side, instead of looking at paper resumes and downloading PDFs and that kind of thing and reading through experience, they are able to see a video instead.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to remember, I guess people going for first time jobs, they don't
Mm.
have work experience. So you're forced to go, I
Yeah.
worked on my uncle's
Yeah.
farm for three
I
months
was school
and I learned all
captain.
these things,
Yeah.
or I did this. Yeah, exactly. And that's
Yeah.
because they have nothing to put there. The really cool thing about this is you get to show off a little bit about your story, what you're interested
Mm.
in, what you're passionate about, and get a real good sense of that individual. And it really gives someone a good opportunity
Yeah,
to put
totally.
their
I've
best foot
actually
forward.
recruited with video a lot in a few different forms and particularly found it so helpful where people didn't have a whole lot of experience because their resume had, like you say, hardly anything on it. But then when you were able to talk to them in person or over the phone, even, you saw this enthusiasm and you thought, oh, this person's going to be great. They're going to get along with our customers. They're the right kind of culture fit. But I never would have known. It's a complete fluke that I've managed to bring them in based on what's on paper.
Mm.
So yeah, it can be a really great kind of shortcut to find talent that you wouldn't have otherwise. A bit of a question for you. I think one of the main arguments against using video is bias in the process. That's something that is talked about a lot. There's a few initiatives going around about kind of
Mm.
having CVs with no names on them because there's a lot of studies that have shown even your name and your gender on your resume can bias hiring managers' decisions. So what do you think about that in terms of in video? Because someone's seeing you physically, so they can make certain judgments on, who you are as a person.
Yeah. There's a few ways to kind of look at this. If you take a philosophical lens, as you kind of said, you can take away how
Mm,
someone sounds, what they look like. You can effectively boil someone down to a number, and you're kind of taking away, I guess, what's most fundamental to a human, which is personality. You can do that, and especially in the industries we're working in, where
mm,
personality is such a core focus, it doesn't really make sense. And we spoke to a lot of Gen Zs with this, and a lot of the culture kind of zeitgeist was to actually
mm.
show off individuality rather than
Yeah.
try and hide it. You kind of got to ask yourself as well what type of world you want to live in. And obviously, you don't want the bias coming through. So, the other lens to look through is bias is
Mm,
usually unconscious bias. So, if you reason out on first principles, the first thing you have to think about is how do you make
yeah.
it conscious? So, one thing that we're thinking about longer term as a completely
Mm,
optional thing for candidates, if they would like, is to put in their ethnicity. So there's no mandatory requirement to do that. You can provide this reporting function to hiring managers to show them what their
yeah.
diversity split is. Then you have the capacity to make something that was probably
Yeah.
unconscious conscious and allow them to then
Yeah, I really
rectify
like
that
that
behavior.
concept. And you touched on it just then, but I think it's really important to suggest that for the roles that this is being used for, these characteristics are really important in terms of your personality and how you come across. And I kind of
Mm.
like to think, well, when you're coming in for an interview, it's happening there anyway. Yeah, so you
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'd love to think that we live in an unbiased world. That's not the case. Taking away all of the characteristics about someone, yes, they get the interview, but if that person's still got that unconscious bias, you're not getting beyond that interview anyway. So I agree with your point of view there. But what would you say to, using
Yeah.
video CVs or this kind of application process for all roles? Do you think it's relevant for every single job that a business would hire for, or is there something specific about that front of house?
So we are very focused at the moment because we, as a marketplace, have
Yeah.
to solve the chicken and egg problem or the cold start problem. So We really focused on retail hospitality and
Mm-hmm.
food service or quick service restaurant. I think longer term areas we're still really interested in is things
Mm.
like customer call centers, fitness kind of areas. A lot of these, what we
Ah,
call
yeah.
deskless workforce, are heavily on their phone. There's a lot of turnover, and regardless, there's always going to be
Yeah.
a human element. It's just the level of importance in that process. So if I'm
Mm.
hiring an engineer for Zapad, I obviously still want some
Yeah.
ability of communication and stuff, but I'm obviously
Yes.
looking at the engineering competency as
Yeah. Yeah.
95% of the factor. So it does vary, but I think there's still roles outside of hospitality, front of house. There's a
Yeah.
lot of customer service, a lot of
Yeah,
still
definitely. And I
customer
think
facing
that's
roles.
exactly kind of how I've used it in my career so far is for roles where pretty much any skills can be transferable. You're not necessarily looking for a particular kind of background. That makes it almost impossible to screen a CV if you're not looking for a particular kind of previous experience, and where a lot of things can be transferable. Video can be a great option, but again, like you mentioned with your engineer example, I also love the example of, an accountant. It's not so important how they're going to do a video. And to be honest, they're
Yeah,
probably going to be too
yeah.
intimidated and like, oh, I'll just go apply somewhere else where I don't have to record a video. And at the end of the day, like the personality of your accountant is not the most important thing. It's their skills and how trustworthy they are and how good at their job they are. What do you think employers are
Correct.
looking
Yeah,
for
definitely.
in a video CV? Because this is where I see some candidates get really confused of like, oh, I've got to record something and then watch it back and then put it out there. And it's sometimes easier if you don't get to watch it back, like on a Zoom call, right? Because it's just live and, you can't change it. Whereas when you've recorded it
Yeah.
and watched it over, you think, oh, did I say that weird? What are they actually looking for?
First get the basics kind of right. So just making sure that the great thing about these videos is people are taking them
Mm,
everywhere in their bedroom, they're walking outside. It is a much more casual kind of format. The really important things is obviously clear
mm,
articulation so you can hear what the person's saying, making sure that, they can actually see you,
mm.
it's not completely blurry. So you
Yep.
get those things right first. And then what's really interesting is there's this example that I like to kind of say, if you go to a party, right, imagine you
Mm,
kind of meet two different people, right? The first person, you ask them what
mm,
music they're into, right? And they're like, oh, I just like to listen to some things on Spotify,
mm.
whatever's on the radio. That's kind of person one. Person two, you ask the same question. They're like, oh my God, I love Taylor Swift. I can't wait till her new album and singles drop, apparently in the next couple of months, if you ask my partner, Kate. But they just keep
Mm.
obsessing and kind of talking about that.
Yeah.
That person stands out because they have a really strong viewpoint. They're really
Mm,
passionate about what they're talking about, and you can get that. You can get that energy. So what we really say is, a lot of the good applications, people do kind of
mm.
say the things they're interested in. They can show that energy and whatnot. And we've had people do applications when they're flying a plane. People who apply to Anytime
Yeah.
Fitness for lifting weights. People wearing burrito like hats,
That's
and yeah,
so
it's
awesome.
crazy. But
I love the
they go
creativity.
really well,
I've
though.
seen a
They go
few that
really
have been
well.
quite creative
Yeah.
in the applications that we've had in, starting off screen and sliding in
Mm.
with your chair and going, oh, I didn't see you there. Hi, man. It's like that gets you straight away. When you've watched like 15 videos in a row
Yeah.
and then you open one and you think, oh, this guy's not in this video. And then he rolls
Yeah.
in. You're like, wow, you've caught my attention. Like, I want to know who
Yeah.
this person is. Energy just jumps off the screen, and there's that authenticity is fine. Some people think they need to get dressed up like they're in an actual job interview. I think you need to look professional enough for the role that you're going for. Like probably not down at the
Yeah.
beach in your
Definitely.
swimwear. But beyond that, like I don't think you need to do your hair and do your makeup and everything. Something a little bit more authentic is what these platforms are built on to make it quicker, so that you're not spending hours and hours on your resume.
And it's a lot easier to do on your phone, right? Like, there's nothing worse because so many people
Mm,
apply for jobs on their phone. You go through and it's
mm,
like, all right, upload a
yeah.
resume, which is annoying on your phone, and then a cover letter, and then now fill out
Questions.
50 other different things to get this
Type all
one
your
application
experience
through. And
into
it's,
the
you
fields,
know,
even though you've just given us all that
yeah,
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. It's it
Yeah.
can be a pain in the butt. So it's a lot
Yeah,
easier to kind of go through
definitely.
this process.
If our listeners are interested in signing up to Zapid Hire to give it a go, what are the industries, what are the areas that you're in currently, and where can they find it?
We're heavily in retail, hospo, and food service. And where you can kind of go, you can go to the App Store or Google Play Store, just type in Zapid Hire and download the app. We suggest everyone kind of go to use the app version. Similar to TikTok, there is a web version, but the app experience
Yeah.
is a lot better from a user experience
And you don't want to
standpoint,
miss your
just because of the nature of
notifications
it.
if someone responds, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, push notifications, messaging, it's a lot easier. Some of the brands on there, things like Kookai, Mad Mex, like even
Yeah,
Marriott
right.
hotels are on there, Fishbowl, Betty's Burgers. So there's a ton of kind of roles on there, all the Rockpool hospitality jobs. So whether you're kind of looking to work at a bar or, you're slightly younger and you want to work at a cool place like
Yeah.
Fishbowl, Betty's Burgers, then
Awesome.
they're all
And that
kind
can
of
be a
there.
great way to get, your job over the school holiday period. Christmas casual hiring is in full swing, if
Yeah,
not already
totally.
finished. So it's a great time to be applying with
Yep.
these kinds of
Yep.
roles. Last piece of advice for people out there looking for jobs. You're talking to job seekers of all different ages across the world. What would be your advice to them?
The thing that we're really trying to push is the thing that's most fundamental to a human is personality. It's the thing that differentiates every single one of us. And when we grow up and we go through school, a lot of the time you do try and fit in for good reason. Like, when I was going through high school, you try not to stand out a lot of the time because it can be difficult, right? And the message or meta message we wanted to send is if you could create a platform where you got hired for who you are, showing off your personality, that's a really good message to be able to internalize at 15, 16, or whatever it is, versus the status quo. So we really kind of just push people to really talk through things they're passionate about, really kind of exude that energy, and even forcing people to think through some of these questions is a really good thing, especially early on, like thinking about what
Yeah.
your superpower is, what's a challenge you've overcome. I think really good skills to think about because as you get older, you have to make more and more career decisions, and it's hard. It's the kind of
Yeah.
paradox of choice. There's a lot of different careers you can take. So getting into the habit of thinking and experimenting with different jobs early on
Yeah.
is, I think, really important
And finding
for
that
people starting
alignment,
off their
right, with
career.
something that you are passionate about. Like if you're the person doing the video lifting weights and then you get a
Yes.
job in the fitness industry, like how much easier is it going to be to come to work when you don't really want to, when you're working with something that's aligned with your personality, or finding the right, version of a hospitality venue. Awesome. That's great advice. Thank you very much. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much for joining us today, Andrew.
No worries. Really great to be here, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks so much for listening to Interview Boss. If you like hearing the sound of our voices, hit that follow button in Apple or Spotify, or better yet, tell someone about the show and help them land their dream job. That's how we hit the charts, and we can help even more people. For more advice, inspiration, and a supportive community, check us out on Instagram at Interview Boss.
We've been your job search besties and helped you in some way. There's a cool way you can support the show. Shout us a virtual coffee.
We get a huge kick out of reading all of your success stories. Head to buymeacoffee.com/interviewboss and shout us a cuppa.
If you keep us caffeinated, we can keep the content coming.